It's about the restoration of our republic. We want to educate, encourage, enable the power. We stand for integrity, honesty, self-reliance, self-defense, and most importantly, no compromise on our foundational principles. This is America's Voice Now.
Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at americasvoicenow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
All right. Here we are. We're live and kicking it. We're in segment 3. Today is October 9th. The announcement out this morning is that Harry Reid, which is unusual in and of itself, wants to increase. This isn't unusual, but the fact that Harry Reid is the announcer of it is. Wants to increase our debt by $1.1 trillion. Now, folks, I mean, let's understand the implications here. You know, Harry Reid, first of all, normally, the Senate is not the one who normally talks about what the increase is going to be in the debt ceiling. That's normally the president. They ask for, this is what I want based on the budget, right? Well, of course, we don't have a budget. We haven't had a budget since this sycophantic dictator took over the damn show here. And so what we have is everything that the system is operated upon initially is completely outside the scope of reality. None of it is none of the processes and procedures which have been followed by presidents and Congresses for generations and decades, and in fact, a couple of hundred years, are being followed. This president has thrown it all out the window under the fundamental change policy. Okay? So let's understand what we're talking about here. The president wants to increase the debt, and he says it through Harry Reid, his mouthpiece. And there's a reason for that. The reason that the president doesn't want to say it is because he doesn't want you to understand that he's the one who's asking for it. And here's the problem with that. If you are talking about the total amount of debt in the United States, adding $1.1 trillion to our budget, and I want you to get, I'm going to give you the address of a website I want you to go to. It's called U.S., like United States, debtclock.org. U.S. Debt Clock. DEBT clock.org. It tells us the statistical numbers. It tells us what the actual real numbers look like. And what you don't get here is that this is the missing piece of the puzzle. First of all, that CS, dictator-in-chief, currently occupying the White House by usurpation, is, first and foremost, doesn't have the brass, the guts, the cojones, the balls to come out and tell us that he wants to jack up the rate by $1.1 trillion on a phantom budget that doesn't even exist. It's an arbitrary number pulled out of the air. Secondarily, they want to extend the date for the next time we have this discussion all the way out to December of 2014. All right, here's the problem with that. If the House and we, the people, allow them to extend this debt window out to 2014, it completely, and the next time we have this discussion is after the next election. And we know what they're trying to do. They're going to shove down our throats immigration in the next couple of months. The push is on, ladies and gentlemen, to drive immigration. It will change the whole scope of the electorate. Not to mention the fact that we cannot wait for the 2014 election if they get this approved. Because with another $1.1 trillion, imagine how much damage this guy can do. Now they say, listen, this isn't to add new money to the debt. This is just to pay our bills. That's an absolute, unmitigated, bald-faced, blatant lie. How do I know that? Because there hasn't been a single instance where the debt has been increased, where the money hasn't been spent. And it's not being spent to cover our debt. It's being spent on all this other crap. It's being spent on buyouts for banks and General Motors. It's being spent on studies at Harvard University to figure out why gay women, lesbian women are fatter than non-lesbian women. What the hell kind of a study is that? $2.6 million for that. And who cares? It's being spent on studies to determine why spoons make people fat and why pencils make kids spell wrong in school. It's being spent on things like Fisker Cars, who got a couple of $100 million to build an electric car in a foreign country. It's being spent on stuff like a $100 million bailout in the healthcare bill, in the immigration bill, thrown in there by Harry Reid, that's going directly to whom? The casinos in Las Vegas, his home state of Nevada. Ladies and gentlemen, don't you see it? This isn't about running our government. This is about more money to pay off their cronies, to buy influence, to buy votes. That's what this is about. Nothing more, nothing less. And if we give them a blank check for $1.1 trillion, we are essentially, look, you wouldn't give your executioner a blank check. Why are we doing this? The truth of the matter is, we don't need to borrow more money. What we need to do is stop the damn spending. Now. We have more than enough income to cover the debt we owe to China and to Japan and everybody else in the foreign side. The Fed holds $3.5 trillion worth of debt. Not for nothing, but they bought that debt with printed money that doesn't exist. We're going to get into that on our next topic when we talk about Yellen, who's going to be the replacement for Bernanke, Janet Yellen, and the Federal Reserve. Look, folks, we don't need to borrow any more money. We need to stop spending the money we don't have now. If we'd stop the spending, look, everything is subject to reform. Everything can be cut. There is waste and fraud in the hundreds of billions of dollars in every department, every agency, everywhere you look. Every entitlement program is rife with it. The best business in America right now is either defrauding the federal government of money or getting grants. Don't you get it? This grant concept and these projects that these Congress people bring back money to their home state, it's our money in the first place. I live in a small city and they're spending $8 million on sidewalks. You've got to be flippin' kidding me. We don't need to spend $8 million on sidewalks. This is a tiny bumpkin city in the middle of flippin' nowhere. Nobody's even walking on them. They'll never be used. They're sidewalks to nowhere. $8 million. Well, it's infrastructure. Listen, we got bridges that are falling down. Let's fix them. If the House lets this administration get away with this, you know what? The truth is, I would be okay with a default. I know that's harsh to say, but I got to tell you something. What it would do is it would force this nation to get a hold of itself by its bootstraps and to begin to exercise some sort of fiscal responsibility. Because we cannot accept the fact and we cannot expect that Congress is going to do it. They will not do it. We have seen it for generations now, ladies and gentlemen. Expecting them to grab this bull by the horns at this point is foolhardy. Why would you expect the person who has been robbing your home, living in your house, sleeping in your bed, eating out of your refrigerator, to start doing the right thing now? Don't you get it? This has left our control. And the only way for us to get control back is to force this government to cut itself off. This government is so out of control fiscally, there is literally no hope for our children and our grandchildren who will come after us. I mean, look, I don't know how much time I've got left on this earth, but I do know this. According to the U.S. debt clock, I am currently in debt right now, just for the amount of, just for the 17 trillion we owe now. I'm in debt for $150,000. There's no way I'm paying that off. None. And the truth of the matter is, that only counts that liability of the actual federal debt. When we talk about the unfunded liabilities of Social Security, prescription drug liability, Medicare liability, the total of unfunded U.S. liabilities is $126 trillion. That's $1.1 million. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to tell you, I don't have $1.1 million, and I don't have the earning power to make $1.1 million in the remainder of time I have left, which means that it falls to my children. It's actually not 1.1 million. It's 1.1 million plus another 150,000. So it's 1.25. It's $1.25 million. Now, look, even if you took every penny I make and I become a slave, and all you do is give me bread and water for the next 20 years, let's assume that that's what I've got left. There's no way I can pay off $1.25 million. Don't you see it? And this is every taxpayer. We're not talking about the wealthy and the super elites here. We're talking about everyday Americans. Look, folks, even if you make $100,000 a year and they take all of it, there's no way you're going to pay off the amount of money you owe. Don't you see it? If you make $100,000 a year at current rates, assuming no further debt is incurred, as of right now, it would take you 12 years to pay off your share. 12! And that's assuming you don't actually need any of it to eat, to get to work, to pay your mortgage, to... Come on, people. So let's assume they take 50%. Okay, it's now going to take you 24 years. And that's assuming we don't incur any further debt. Anything you die with, your children have to pick up the tab for. And they want to add another 1.1 trillion. This president has already added $7 trillion to the debt individually by himself. Let's understand what that number means. That number is greater than all the presidents from George Washington to Bill Clinton. Collectively. And now he wants to add another 1.1 trillion to that. It will make this man the most profligate spender that the world has ever seen. Not the United States, the world. What you don't understand is that we do not need to borrow another $1.1 trillion. And I got to tell you, the $1.1 trillion is not going to come from China and Japan. They don't want any more of our debt. Where it is going to come from is the Federal Reserve. Don't you see it? They're going to print money to buy debt. The money doesn't exist. The debt doesn't really exist. It's a card game. It's like playing poker with plastic chips. There's really no money involved. The only problem is, at the end of the game, they're going to reach into your pocket to collect on whatever those chips were. Well, they don't care because they're spending and borrowing and using those chips all day long. But that's because they're not responsible for it. Ladies and gentlemen, we are not in a crisis of debt. We are not in a crisis of constitutional proportions. We are in a crisis as a nation, as a republic. We have reached the end of the period of complete and utter United States of America apathy. We can no longer live in a state of apathy. The truth of the matter is, a default would not really be a default. First of all, the actual debt service that we owe to foreign nations is only about $25 billion a month. We bring in $225 billion. So if you take $25 billion off, that still leaves us $2 billion to utilize for our own expenses. And if you take off that which is mandatorily required by law to be paid, which would be, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, all of those entitlement programs, we still have money left over. We don't need to borrow more money. We need to stop spending money. Money we don't have. This isn't to pay our bills. This is to rack up more. The president is a liar. Harry Reid is a liar. And if John Boehner agrees to this, he's a liar. It's the simple reality of this. We're not borrowing money to pay our bills. We're borrowing money to create more. And that is the fundamental change that the President of the United States of America has been seeking since 2008. The utter and unmitigated destruction of this nation from within. You've been listening to America's Voice Now. My name is Michael Evans. I'm your host. You can find us on the web by going to americasvoicenow.org. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/America's Voice Now. And then you can find us also in this and every other video program that we make at youtube.com/America's Voice Now. I implore you to go on and to YouTube, and if you like one of these segments, please make sure that you go out to your Facebook page and share a link. You go to the embed link, and it gives you the code. You can actually put it right on there. You don't even have to send people to YouTube. They can just click and watch it right on your website. Learn how to do that. It's important. Also, send it a link to someone in an email and say, here's a guy who makes sense. Listen to this program and tell me that you don't have a change about the way you're thinking. We'll be right back.